Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another episode of Beef, Bacon, and Eggs here at Islam for Europeans. I'm your host, Robert. Please like and subscribe to the channel. We are a YouTube channel that is dedicated to healing the broken relationship between Islam and the West. And further to that, I have a very special guest for us today. We have Sister Alie Forza. Please like and subscribe to her channel as well. She has a great Islamic channel. I believe she converted recently, I guess more recently than me, although that's not saying much. I'm an old fogey. But she is coming from, I believe, the wonderful country of Albania, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's right. Alhamdulillah. I'm in Tirana, Albania, the capital city. Yes.
Oh,
Alhamdulillah.
cool. Very nice,
Hmm.
very nice. And how is before we get into like I guess our questions about how you converted and stuff, how is Tirana? How do you like it?
Tirana is a beautiful city. Alhamdulillah, it's a 59% of Albanians are Muslim. So it's nice to be in a Muslim majority country. The food is wonderful. People are warm and generous here, and the climate is absolutely perfect, in my opinion. So I know for people, a lot of people don't like the hot, humid weather, but I absolutely love it. So yeah, it's wonderful
Mhm.
here.
I
Hmm.
made a video recently on should Muslims make hijra to, or
Oh,
Euro
interesting.
converts, should they make hijra
Yep.
to Bosnia and Albania? I said, and
Mm,
I spoke with several Bosnians about it, and they said it's not a good idea because it
mm.
may upset the region, but it is a great place to visit. So would you say the same thing about Albania?
Yeah, Albania. I mean, I think it would be a little bit of they love Albanians love Americans, love Westerners for sure. So I think it would be probably an easier fit. I was in Bosnia for the last 10 days of Ramadan, and Bosnia is just another, obviously, it's just a beautiful country. I would argue that Bosnia is probably better for Western Muslims because there's more masjids. I mean, in Tirana, which is I think it's like 1 million people in the city. I think I'm not really sure. There's like 3 million people in the entire country, but um, there's only really one masjid that's close by in the city center. And there's another masjid that they're building, but it's taking forever. I mean, we were here 18 months ago and it was being built and it's still being, I mean, I don't know what the holdup is, but it's beautiful and it's big. But the masjid that we always go to on Fridays is small. I mean, it's tiny. It's really, really tiny. So Bosnia, I mean, really on every corner, there's a masjid. You can walk in, there's a women's section. It's absolutely beautiful. People are welcoming. A lot of people speak English, so yeah, I would argue Bosnia might be a better better fit than Albania. The food is very similar, of course. It's very much like Turkish food, of course.
Okay.
But yeah, I love the fact that there was a masjid on every corner in Bosnia, in Sarajevo specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. I would love to visit it
Mhm.
one day, inshallah.
Yeah.
And
Inshallah.
but tell us a bit about yourself, Sister Ali, and how you found out about Islam, like your journey. Take
Sure,
us.
sure.
The
So
floor is yours.
I Yeah, yeah. So I have a more detailed three-part journey to Islam video series on my channel. So if people want to know more in depth, they can go and check that out, inshallah. But briefly, I was always interested in religion. I grew up in like most Western people, I grew up in a Christian household. I noticed a lot of hypocrisy within my own family, especially from my father. So it was, I say one thing, I do another. And that really bothered me. So I was really interested. Why are people hypocrites? Why do people say these things and then do the exact opposite? So that was really intriguing to me. And so when I moved to the United States and I got into university, I decided, well, this is what I want to study. I want to study religion. And I was a typical California girl doing yoga 6 days a week, maybe seven, depending on the week. And I was also a bartender at night. And so when I got accepted to UC Berkeley, I wanted to study Hinduism. I thought, oh, this is really cool. I had been to India before. So I was like, oh, let's check this out. But because I was working nights, I got off at 2:30 in the morning. By the time I drove back home to Oakland, um, it was like 3:30 in the morning by the time I wound down from my shift. And the Hindu 101 class was at 9 a.m. Well, there's no way I can get a good amount of sleep, head back to Berkeley, and then do well in that class. And so I looked through the course schedule and Islam 101 was at 1 p.m. And I was like, perfect. I can wake up at noon, be back in Berkeley at 1 and do well in the class. And alhamdulillah, that's how I found out about Islam. My professor was Dr. Hatem Bazian. He is a known activist. He's a lecturer at Berkeley, obviously, and he's a wonderful man. He's a practicing Muslim. And so I got to learn about Islam. My very first introduction to Islam was by a practicing Muslim at the academy. So it was a really, I mean, subhanAllah, it's weird to think that my bartending schedule introduced me to Islam, but that is the way it worked out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I come from a comedy family. My dad's a stand-up comedian,
Oh, cool.
and my parents ran the only comedy club in Windsor, Ontario, for
Oh, goodness.
years.
Right.
So I was always around alcohol, unfortunately. But
Yes. Yep.
uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I have an interesting story about that. When I first converted,
Hmm.
there were friends of mine who ran an arcade.
Oh, cool.
They were also Muslim. One of them was a recent convert, and it was just
Mm.
basically like, a game cafe. People play video games, and it was an environment where kids could go and just hang out and not and be in an environment where there's no alcohol. And it
Mm.
just so
Wow.
happened that this place was directly adjacent to where my parents opened up their new comedy club. So it was amazing because like they wanted me to help out with this comedy club, and I just recently converted. So being in there was just like you felt like you were in hell, like you were
Oh,
literally
absolutely.
behind them. And then like after I was done my shift, I'd be like, okay, I need to get to digital reality. So I'd run across the street and I'd just be in a much better environment.
Right.
Um, but that's cool. So you're now in Albania. So what spurred you to go from the from North America to Europe, and what are the differences you notice as like
Mm.
as a convert?
Well, it's interesting, so I went to from California, I moved to New York City to go to grad school, and I studied Islam. I got my master's from there, studied conversion to Islam amongst Latinas in the United States. And so because I was going through that process myself, I wanted to understand, how do you become Muslim? What does it mean to become Muslim, right? So I had learned about Islam through a very academic standpoint. And then I thought, well, I was feeling these feelings, right? So I was like, okay, so what does it mean to be like, how does one become Muslim? You can study Islam and politics or world affairs, sure. But to become Muslim is something I could feel it was happening to me. And I was like, let's study this. And there wasn't that many white converts that I knew about, but there was a huge growing. I mean, the Latinas in the United States is a huge um, community now, alhamdulillah. And so I wanted to study that. And so I could sort of understand what they were going through, how they made that connection. So I went to grad school there in New York, and I was there for almost a decade. And I ended up getting accosted in a Tompkins Square Park. We lived in the East Village. My family and I lived in the East Village. And the quote unquote summer of love, 2020, was very dangerous in New York City. It was dirty. It was dangerous. We could see, New York City really start crumbling under our feet. And so my family was like, we got to get out of here. And we didn't know where to go exactly. We knew we had been to Italy many, many times, and we know that they have a lot of really good programs for expats in not only in Italy, but in Portugal specifically. So we thought, well, let's get to Portugal. Let's get to somewhere else where it's safer. And so we made the decision to go to Europe and to live there. It's very different, obviously. Portugal is unique in the way that it accepts expats. People, you could apply for many visas and live there. Italy is not that. It's very different, unfortunately. I would love to live in Italy for the rest of my life. But yeah, it's very hard to become an expat in Italy. So we chose Portugal. And Portugal, we lived in Porto, and they have a wonderful Muslim community. We lived in I mean, 10 minutes from the masjid, and there's a beautiful women's section, and there's a ton of women there. I met some friends. I mean, it was wonderful. So it was good in that way, of course. But yeah, then we moved to Italy. We lived there for 90 days. I mean, we've been back and forth between Portugal and Italy for many years. So, well, since 2021, when we finally left, when our lease was up in our apartment in Manhattan. So, in Naples, we were living in Naples, and there's no I mean, there are masjids. There's three masjids, but there's no women's section, which I guess is very common. Apparently in the UK, there's a very little women's section as well, which is very surprising. Coming from NYU, it was like the Islamic Center. I mean, it's huge women's section, right? It's something that I thought was normal. which is very naive, I guess, in my, and then Bosnia has tons of women's section, Albania, tons. I mean, there are women's sections, but for some reason they don't have them in the UK and in Italy, unfortunately, but in Portugal they do have them. So yeah, it's very different in that way as well. So I think there's a large South Asian community in the UK. And I think that prevents them for whatever reason, they haven't included women in that in their community, really, which is such a disservice to Muslim women, and especially to converts. We need community. We crave community. I've talked to a lot of even born Muslims that are from the South Asian community, because I made a video on my YouTube channel called No Women Section at the Masjid, because I was so shocked in Napoli. That's how naive I was. I thought, of course, there's going to be a women's section. I'm part of the community there. There wasn't. And alhamdulillah, the Bangladeshi brothers, it was a Bangladeshi mosque that I went to. They were so kind. They just I went into basically the imam's apartment and he let me pray there. And, alhamdulillah for them, it was very, very nice. But I mean, that's not really practical, right?
Right.
It's not really a practical
No,
solution. Yeah. So, but yeah, so anyway, so it was really interesting. And women had DM'd me on Instagram and said, I'm South Asian. We don't go out to the masjid to pray. That's not something that we do, but we want to. We crave community. Women are Muslims too. We want community. We want to have this connection with other Muslims, and not just the Muslims in our family, where we're told the same things over and over. We want to learn from each other, grow together from women around the world, not just those in our closest part of our community. So I think we have to sort of think about, how do we make the community more inclusive for women, really? And that's the biggest shock for me, was the fact that there's no women's section in the masjid. And in the UK, it's like, it still boggles my mind, because I'm always like, oh, I'm going to go to the UK. And then people are like, oh, there's no women's section in the masjid. I'm like, wait, what? How is that possible? That's 50% of your community.
Yeah, I heard that before from there's secondhand through like a Daisy sister, because they asked, like, why do women go to the mosque? It's like, well, they it was like, to them, it was like a source of pride, like like, mashallah, we don't go to the mosque. Like, it's like an extreme reaction against liberalism. But you're right, there's no basis for it in the Sunnah. And
Right.
like, you're right, you hit the nail right on the head. Converts, we crave community. So if you belong to a Muslim family and community and extended family already, yeah, you can't go to the masjid, but at the same time, you have cousins and sisters and daughters who are already Muslim. But for
Right.
converts, I guess for brothers, it's a different story. You go into the mosque, there's more brothers to begin with. More of them speak English, and they interact more with the greater non-Muslim society. So,
Right.
you can go to a masjid and get that connection if you're a brother. But if you're a sister, like you said, if they don't have a women's section, and then there's some masjids where you go and you're the only woman there.
Yep.
So like you said, it's a very it's not functional in terms of like growing a community of converts from the ground up. And and in addition, like, we're like, we had a lot of protective factors to not just convert to Islam, but enter into an existing Muslim community. I mean, like,
Right.
I don't think, and we talk about this a lot on our channel. I want to get your thoughts on it. Your average Westerner, I mean, like, for them to actually convert to Islam and not have these like protective factors, an extroverted personality, a willingness to like jump into a new community, at least a couple of supportive family members, it could be, it's going to be very difficult. I don't know if you've seen other people convert to Islam and then they drop off. I mean, have you seen anything like that?
Yeah. I haven't, alhamdulillah, I have not seen people drop off, but I know it happens. I hear about it all the time on Twitter and on Instagram. And unfortunately, that is, and yeah, what a shame. We really need community. It's one of the reasons why I started my channel. I was like, well, how do I meet other Muslims? Like, how do I, especially as somebody who travels quite a bit, like, we're always moving every 90 days, every 6 months, every 9 months, we're in a different location. Well, how do I create a community in that way? Right. So, and also, like, as a white person, we don't have that community. Where are the other white Muslims? I know they exist, right? When you look at Bosnia, Albania, these are white people, but like, a lot of them don't speak English, right? As well. I mean, in Bosnia they do, but in here in Albania they don't. So yeah, it's a shame that we are being I don't want to say maligned, but excluded from the community. And I've had brothers even say to me, I'm a convert. There's no masjids where I live. If I didn't travel, had the opportunity to travel to the Middle East, I would have no community at all. And I thought, isn't that a shame? But there's also South Asian Muslims, like I was saying, that are born and raised in the community that are still craving community. I want to learn from other people. Sure, I don't go to the masjid, but I still want to learn from other people. And that's why, YouTube, alhamdulillah, that there's that platform that they can watch our channels, watch. It's like, oh, okay, I'm learning from this woman. Maybe I'll, add a comment here and people, I can sort of get involved in this community because I mean, even if you're born Muslim, you don't want to have to talk to the same people, the same aunties, the same sisters every day. I mean, if you're not allowed, quote unquote, allowed to go to the masjid, and also for safety reasons, right? Especially in India, where they're having a huge surge in Islamophobia, especially this year with the elections going on. So it's not just converts, but it's also born Muslims, especially from the South Asian community. I've heard a lot from them. They're just like, we are just dying for community. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, alhamdulillah, though, I think the counterculture of young Muslims that they see these problems and they're just
Mm-hmm.
like, let's think of creative ways,
Yeah.
to address them.
Right.
Like it's been a long haul. I mean, I converted to Islam in 2003, so I've been
Oh,
Muslim
wow.
for 21 years, and I've seen a
Wow.
lot in my day. And attempts that have failed and trying to integrate converts.
Mm,
But even with like the Muslim youth, like even a lot of masjids, they alienate a lot of the Muslim youth, and they've had to
mm-hmm.
find alternatives, like
Mm,
MSAs and
yep.
other groups and things, and then sometimes you get a mosque that just wants to break away and and try something different.
Right.
So it's a slow go, but I really think that
It
it's
is.
good that you have a channel such as this,
Mm-hmm.
to get that sense of community for people who don't have it. Um,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
and like you said,
Absolutely.
it's online, so it's easily accessible
Right.
um, everywhere. You
100%.
mentioned white Muslims, and
Mhm.
like here at Islam for Europeans, what we're trying to get at is trying to analyze uh, why there's been no collectivization of white Muslims. Now, we use
Mhm.
the term obviously Islam for Europeans. White is a loaded term, and
Absolutely.
for us, like Europeans, it's more about the relationship between Islam and Europe. I mean,
Mhm.
Spaniards, Portuguese, Southern Italians have like darker
Right.
skin tones than many Arabs, but
Mhm.
I think there's several factors at play there. I mean, one, like for centuries, our quote unquote people, our kaum, were like the adversary of the Muslims and vice
Right.
versa. They were worried for each other for centuries. There's no real European Muslim identity. I think
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
another thing. Like you mentioned Latino sisters or like Latina sisters, they can at least refer back to Andalus, or maybe
That's right.
their ancestors are Muslims. There's a lot of cognates between this Arabic and Spanish. Um,
Mhm.
if you look at the African American community, like their ancestors were Muslim, and their Islam was stripped away from them when they were brought over as slaves.
Right.
But for us, it's like it's like the complete opposite. It's like a complete rejection of one's identity. So what we're trying to do is foster, like this kind of new meta narrative, because
Mm.
Islam is growing in the West, but
Yeah.
I think what we've done is that we've been so afraid to have this kind of collective identity, for a couple of reasons. One is that the whole idea of white people organizing for any reason whatsoever is like illegal in some countries.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, but on top of that, there's this idea that by kind of forming these convert groups, there's
Mhm.
the knee jerk reaction is that you're dividing the Muslim ummah, and we're
Right.
trying to break that down as well. Like, what does division mean? Does it mean that
Right.
you know, I mean, like if you look at every Muslim sub community in the West,
Mhm.
you take any metropolitan city, in North America that has a large Muslim population, there are countless organizations dedicated to improving, like for example, like we have the Syrian Canadian Association, the Pakistani Canadian Association.
Mhm.
These associations, they need to exist to ameliorate new arrivals to Canada.
Right.
But there's nothing like that for converts.
Right. Right. Right.
So like we're trying to say is that this is not division. We,
Right.
belong to this kind of social circle.
Hmm.
There's a lot of mutual animosity between our co-religionists and our co-ethnics,
Right.
and we absolutely need this. I mean, like,
We
how else can we
definitely
survive? So
we
I want to get
definitely
your
do.
thoughts on that, Ali. Like,
Mhm.
I know, like, that's our solution sounds kind of like outside the box, but
Mhm.
like the like, do you think that that's something that could be like actually like implemented in like Europe proper? Or?
Yeah, I mean, inshallah one day, right? I think it's probably, we talk about, Islam for Europeans, but I think in the West, specifically North America, Canada, and the United States probably has a bigger opportunity there than they would be. I mean, there's very little Muslims in Italy. I was just there last week. I mean, they're not, I mean, they're Roman Catholics through and through. I mean, the chance of, I know in Milan there is a small Muslim community as well. I don't know what sort of ethnicity they are, but it seems to be in Naples, it's the Bangladeshi community or the North African community specifically. I think in Canada, yeah, it's interesting. I was at the convert. They have at the Islamic Center at NYU. They have a converts group, and it's called Conversations, which is kind of cute, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of them, I started going every it was like once a month. So I started going when I was at NYU, and there was a lot of white people there actually, and we had the same. So we not only getting Islamophobia from our own families, of course, but also from the community. You go into the masjid and people are like, "Why are you here? What are you
Yeah.
doing here? Why?" And I've had that people ask me, are like, "Are you even Muslim?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm Muslim." Like, "Oh, well, okay, I guess." It's like you don't look
Wow.
Muslim. You know what I mean? So it's sort of
Yeah.
that sort of, and I get it, and I get it, especially in the United States and specifically in New York City, the Muslim community was illegally surveilled,
Yeah.
obviously by the government, by NYPD as well. So I get the sort of skepticism, but we also have to believe people they are who they say they are, right? So um it's a bit of a shame, and I think that there's a lot of work there that can be done. I think there's a big opportunity for white Muslims to, and there was a girl on my channel just the other day. I said I was going to look at the blogging theology video with Joseph Lombard and Paul Williams. They did a whole thing about decolonizing the Muslim mind, which is a wonderful podcast. So I wanted to talk about that on my channel, and one of the girls commented and said, she lives in the United States, but she's actually Albanian, but she lives in the United States, and they always consider her the community that is there where she lives. She didn't say where she lives specifically, but they always consider her a convert. She's like, "No, I'm Albanian. I'm born Muslim. Alhamdulillah." They're like, "Okay, well, she's a white girl. She's a white girl." They always consider her as different, right? So it's like Islam is a religion for all places, for all people, for all time, right? It's not a Middle Eastern religion. It's not a South Asian religion. It's for everyone. We have to start thinking about, and as a white person, I know this, right? Like it happened to me. I have become Muslim. You have become Muslim. We can see how this is. There's no there's no dichotomies there, right? We can be Muslim and we can be white. This Albanian girl feels the same. The Bosnians, they feel the same. Of course, I'm Muslim and I'm also a white person, right? So there is something between our co-religionists, like you said. There is some sort of like, well, you don't fit the bill. Why don't you fit the bill? Why are you here? Are you really Muslim? I get that on my channel. Are you really Muslim? Are you LARPing as a Muslim? And I'm like, first of all, that's
Yeah.
takfiri. So
It
that's
is. Yeah.
haram, right?
Yeah.
But also it's like, why do you think that I'm not Muslim? Because I don't look like you? I mean, Russia has a huge Muslim population and they're all, look like me, right? So it's just it's or us, So it's sort of an interesting, I think, white Muslims have a we're able to to understand this. We can be, white and Muslim, but for some reason other Muslims can't see that. I don't know why. I'm
Well,
not
I
really
mean,
sure what that is.
yeah, again, there's some Muslims who are on the extreme left. They tend to get a bigger megaphone in university spaces.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't represent the majority, but
Right.
they're there. And like, I still, I'm an open book. I'm willing to have these people on my channel. No one's
Right.
ever taken me up on it. Um, but
Interesting.
it's but again, we've gotten a lot of support from the from Muslims from all walks of life. But it's funny
alhamdulillah.
because the arguments that these Muslims on the left always make,
Mm-hmm.
vis-a-vis the Anglosphere and by extension white Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
what we're proposing in Islam for Europeans, would be a solution to what there's, all of their qualms. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you probably heard the common argument, Muslims are oppressed in the West because, we're 99% people of color.
Right, right, right,
And
right.
you might say, okay, well, that's true. But if you think about it, they're really begging the question. If that's the problem, then what's the solution? Wouldn't the solution be more white Muslims? And
Right,
how do you
right,
do
right,
that?
right, right,
You
right.
grow the sub community from the ground up,
That's
and then
correct. Yeah.
also, they'll say, like, there's so much anti-Islam sentiment and so much Islamophobia among like white
Mm-hmm.
people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's like there's one statistic that came out that among like the age group 18 to 24,
Mm.
in the United States, white Americans are the most pro-Palestinian among any racial group.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
more than
Alhamdulillah.
blacks and Hispanics. But putting that
Interesting. Hmm.
aside,
Mm-hmm.
like, it should be our responsibility, because when you convert to Islam as a white person,
Mm-hmm.
you still have a family and a community that you have all these ties with, that you grew up with,
Right.
that your blood relations with, that you played tennis with. It's now your responsibility to, show what Islam really is. And,
Right.
that's very difficult to do as a single person. But if you
Yes.
have a collective effort, like
Right.
incrementally, inshallah, like their hearts
Inshallah.
and minds will change. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
I don't. I think that's a reason why these Muslims on the extreme left, don't want to debate or establish discourse with me, because I would basically say that, if this is what you want, I mean, this is a solution to your qualms about
Right.
Islam and the Anglosphere. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We're lucky we have people like Sheikh Hassan Spiker. He's a white Muslim. His parents were converts. We have Imam Tom. We do have some beautiful, articulate scholars who are white Muslims who are sort of changing that narrative in a way, right? But to a specific audience, right? They're very academic, and so there is that opportunity for them to be able to sort of like, oh, he looks like me. That's interesting. What does he have to say about this? And I share those videos all the time with my own family to say, like, you can look like that too. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I think it's interesting that yeah, it's, inshallah that, this we can collectivize as
yeah,
a unit. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And by collectivization, we're not. The other knee-jerk reaction is that you're dividing the Muslim Ummah. I mean, no,
Right.
we're not. We're not dividing ourselves from the Muslim Ummah. We're still
No.
interacting with, like, we have a
Yeah, of
convert
course.
group here in London, Ontario, that's been
Mm.
highly successful.
Oh,
We're not,
alhamdulillah.
like, we accept all converts, but we
Right.
realize that, these converts coming from totally different cultures. So,
Yeah.
like, last month we had a Jamaican iftar, at the
Yes, yes,
mosque.
I heard that.
So no
That's so
one,
awesome.
like, the board Muslim community was like, oh, okay. What I mean, they thought it was cool, but they didn't really understand like the whole meaning behind it. And I think it's
Right.
because, like, yeah, I mean, Jamaicans, there's not many Muslims in Jamaica, but we had a
Right.
couple of Jamaican converts. They're just like, yeah, we'll do it.
Right.
Um,
That's so
so
cool.
it's like, I think in theory, what they're saying about, like, why can't converts, why can't the Muslim community, like, accept them? They need to be more accepting. I think in theory that's true, but I think
Mhm.
overall, I think you have, even if there's no animosity between your family, your community, and the Muslim community, they don't
Mhm.
really interact with one another. Like,
Right. Yeah.
they hang out at different spaces. Muslims
Yeah.
are very reluctant to go to non-Muslim spaces because there's dogs and alcohol or whatever.
Mhm.
And a lot
Right.
of our family and community don't want to go to a mosque. So you're
Yeah.
really caught between two worlds. And if you go to a mosque, yeah, it's great, get to see other people, but you're only going to be there half an hour to an hour, and that's not going
Right.
to supplant like all this social loss that you're going to experience. So
That's right. That's right. That's very, very true. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And a lot of people don't know, that's an actually interesting idea for content is this is what to expect when you go to a mosque, for, there's crazy these, like what to expect, how to order, Chipotle. Like there are videos that people just don't know how they're socially awkward. So it's like, how do we sort of help our friends and family understand what does a mosque look like? Why are there no chairs like there are in church? how come there's no stage where the pulpit, like things like that? Where's the band? Uh,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
um, you know, where's the rock band? Where's the drummer? Where's he supposed to sit? So, so having that, so, because I know my own brother is contemplating conversion, and inshallah he makes that decision. He's
Sure.
never been to a masjid because, he calls the imam and the imam never calls him back. He emails the imam never emails him back and I understand imams are busy, of course. They have many, many roles for sure. But he's never been to a masjid. So, maybe we can start making content where it's like, this is what a masjid looks like. This is what you do when you get into a masjid. This is the prophetic tradition that what we do, the two rakahs or whatever, so people can sort of, oh, I understand. There was a video or a picture that went viral on Twitter, a girl in a short skirt, sort of with a tank top on, trying to learn how to pray.
I saw that.
Praying is a very, and so it's these stories that are just like these people, that look like us, don't know how to do this. This is a very different religion in terms of from going from Christianity to Islam. It's very different. We don't sit and pray. We don't put our hands together. There's all these different things but I also think that, there are a lot of channels that do talk about this, obviously, but I don't know how many of them talk about what to expect when you go to a masjid, or what to expect when how to pray. It's a daunting thing, and like you said, there's a lot of people who are like, I would never go to a masjid. I know converts, white converts. They have, because they married into the religion. They have never been to a masjid. Oh, I've been a convert 8 years. I've never been to a masjid. What? Wait, what? I mean, that's just shocking to me. I mean, because they're integrated into their husband's family. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. But what about those of us who aren't, right? So yeah, I think there's an opportunity there that maybe that we're missing, that, or that we should at least take advantage of.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
Like the other thing is that I guess, with I knew that, you know, back in October of last year that there's going to be an
Mm,
influx of people converting to Islam,
right.
because of the
Subhanallah.
unfortunate events in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But Muslim communities aren't really talking about that. I mean, like, because I've seen these masjids try to implement these programs for converts,
Hmm.
and they don't understand what the problems are, and they end up
Hmm.
throwing money at the problem,
Yeah, of
and it
course.
doesn't solve the issue. So
Yeah.
I think that's why I made that video like last year, because I'm just like, look, like, Muslim community is already strapped to begin with. That money should be
Hmm.
going to Gaza.
Yeah.
I don't think we have money to spend, like, we're not, we don't have, like, we shouldn't be wasting money on convert programs if we know it's not going to work. I mean, just to give you like
Mm.
a tiny example, like, we surveyed these converts, like, what are the biggest issues that you're facing? And
Yeah.
number one was managing the relationship with your non-Muslim family and community. And like I said, mosques are
Interesting.
not designed for that. So when you're just
No.
throwing money at the problem and it's not fixing those issues,
Right.
it might end up that, like, might get converts who end up homeless. And now the
Yeah.
cost of housing what are you going to do? Are you going to pay room and board for all these converts who get kicked out of their homes?
Right. Right. It's
It's just,
difficult.
so I don't think, Muslim organizations have even contemplated this.
Right. Good
So I
point.
just wanted to get your
Mm,
take on that. I mean, like,
mm.
like,
So
are we misallocating, funds to, like, what mosques try to do when they try to help, or is it
when they
some?
try to help, yeah, I think that, like you just said, I mean, I haven't ever really thought about that, the managing relationships. This is all new to me. So I think that's a really good point. That people don't understand. Like, and if they're kicked out of their home, I mean, I can't imagine being kicked out of your home for being Muslim. Can you? Ugh, what a shame. But I guess it happens, right? Where you are, right? You've heard of that. Alhamdulillah, I've never heard of that. So, but I can imagine, I have Islamophobes in my own family. But I
Yeah.
was an adult when I converted, so I didn't have
Right.
to deal with, I was already living on my own, alhamdulillah. So, but I can imagine that there's probably some pretty stressful situations, and it's not like, where you can rest or live in the church like they, when the poor people did back in the, in 100 years ago or whatever it was. So
Mm.
masjids just aren't equipped for that. So yeah, that's, I never really even thought about that. And yeah, no, of course, Gaza is on our minds. And fundraising for anything other than that, I just don't think that that's practical, especially now.
Yeah.
So we want to, help them as much as possible. Yeah, it's something I haven't really thought about, to be honest, Robert. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because like we want to be a net positive for the community. I mean, that's
of
the other thing is that
course.
we don't want to
Yeah,
feel like we're overburdening them,
right.
and like this can even play out in terms of the type of like education. I mean, I think that
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I want your comments on this.
Mm-hmm.
Education, like programs in mosques in general, uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they're very advanced. They're like graduate level programs, and
Mm.
like even many mosque like educational programs are just in Arabic or just in Urdu, and
Oh.
when they are in English, they use still like 50% Arabic terms. And
Mm.
there's a reason for that. A lot of I spoke with an imam recently. He said that like they're worried about Arab youth losing their Islam, and that's tied into loss of the Arabic language. So I can
Oh,
understand
interesting.
why they're always speaking Arabic in the masjid.
Mm.
It's not to be
Mm-hmm.
exclusionary to people who don't
No.
speak Arabic, so that they're losing their Islam. But
Right.
what happens when a whole bunch of converts enter this
Show
mosque? Now you
up.
have to like speak more English, so there's a mismatch. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't want us to overburden these mosques with like these converts when they don't really know like how, now they got to change their whole program and make it like
Mm-hmm.
So what have you seen that like when you go to masjids around Europe
Oh,
or?
yeah, of course. I mean, that's the one problem. Like, I didn't speak Portuguese, right? And so I had no idea what the imam was saying. I was like, okay, but I wanted to go there for the community to talk to sisters, to be like, okay, this is what I feel a sense of community. I was really craving a sense of community. In Italy, obviously I went once and there was no, I mean, it was just in the imam's apartment, basically. Here in Albania, I don't speak Albanian. I have no idea on yesterday what the imam even said. I know a few Arabic words, of course. In Bosnia, the same thing, but Bosnian, they have, a lot of people spoke English there. I would say, a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, I was back at the ICNYU when I was visiting New York City. And I was back with Imam Latif, who was born and raised in, I think, New Jersey or something. So he's an American Muslim. And I wept the entire khutbah. And I was like, I could understand what he was speaking in English, and of course there was a few Arabic words in there, but very few. And I was just like, this is what we need, right? This is what, and I literally, I mean, Robert, I wept the entire time.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm home. Like, I feel like I'm finally here. I need to be out of the New York City area because it's so dangerous. Fine. But hearing the khutbah, in English, I mean, it was just like, it soothed my soul. It was something that I was craving for so long, and it's so interesting because we talk about making hijra, but it's like, but if you don't speak the language, how is that going to help you? Right. And of course we should, inshallah, we're learning. I mean, I'm going to be taking an Arabic class very soon here. My fifth Arabic class. I want to learn Arabic for sure, so I can read the Quran in the language it was revealed in, fine. But also, I want to hear a khutbah in English. And that's why Kalam podcast, they have their khutbahs in Instagram on Fridays. Numan Ali Khan puts up his khutbah. We have that opportunity on YouTube, but when you're sitting in a group with people, it's one thing to be in your room by yourself listening to Numan Ali Khan on a recorded podcast. Okay, cool. But when you're in a group where everybody's saying Ameen at the same time, and when they say, oh, peace and blessings be upon the Prophet, when we're all saying it together and we're praying in unison, there's nothing like it, right?
Yeah.
And so, online is one thing, but if you can find a masjid, excuse me, the Islamic Center at NYU is a perfect opportunity for white people to go and feel like they're part of a community. They have a conversations group, and I don't know if it's closed just for NYU students. I don't know if it's open for everybody. I presume because of safety reasons, it's probably not open. I know I had to apply. I actually had to apply to get back into the ICNYU since October 7th. They've had security concerns for obvious reasons. So yeah, I think, we need more imams, who are able to speak to us as a community. I mean, London, Ontario. I mean, why is there not a imam like, speaking to white Muslims? I mean, there has to be, and not only, I know there's a lot of Syrians in the East Coast of, like in New Jersey and stuff. And I understand that that's great, but we need to have masjids that speak to English speakers, the Anglosphere.
Yeah.
We're
Well, I
missing
mean,
out.
that is
Imam
in London,
Tom is a
Ontario.
perfect example of this.
Yeah, it took a long time, but it is in London,
Hmm.
Ontario now.
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah, we have
Alhamdulillah.
the Muslim Wellness Network, which is
Oh,
like
cool.
they do a lot of very cool things, not just with Converse, with the youth.
Mm.
Like there's a small Bosnian mosque here in London as
Oh,
well.
cool.
Um, but changing gears a bit,
Sure.
now one thing we do study on Islam for Europeans is quote unquote Islamophobia. I call it
Mm.
anti-Islam sentiment.
Okay.
But we notice that there's a trend that there's like this schism on the right now, that
Hmm.
you have, because back in 2003 and onwards, like anti-Islam sentiment was at its zenith, and you had groups like the EDL in Britain where it was just Islam, Islam, Islam is the problem.
Right,
Now we
right, right,
see like this schism now where there's still that element that thinks that Islam is the problem, but
right.
there's the other side of the right, like the dissident right, that looks at it more from a racial perspective and not from an
Mhm.
Islamic
Oh, yeah.
perspective.
Right,
Have you
right.
seen that, or is it just, being in
Oh, yeah.
Europe, is it just still like stop the Islamization of Europe?
Yeah,
What?
of
Yeah,
course.
that's what
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, the
That's what
PM,
I thought.
Giorgia Meloni in Italy, she is very anti-Islam, right? So
Yeah.
Islam doesn't belong here in Italy, yada yada yada. Yeah, I get it on my channel all the time. I even made a video, can Muslims be white, to sort of counteract that, because a lot of people were like, oh, you're white, you have no identity, you have no culture, you're soulless. This is why you had to pick this. And it's like, okay, it's like you cannot be white Muslim, right? So it's just it literally makes zero sense to me. And I just, anti-Islam sentiment, yeah, it's very, very common in, not in Albania, obviously, but in Italy, of course. And but not in Portugal. But Portugal is an interesting, because it's part of, there was a lot of Muslims there back in the day. So yeah, I think that in Italy it's going to be a hard nut to crack. I don't know if that's ever going to be. And I guess people were saying on my channel, that Islam was part of Sicilia, like Sicily, and stuff. And I don't know that history at all. Um, but yeah, I do think that Italy would be a stronghold. Like I don't think that there's many Muslims there that look like me. Um,
Yeah.
in fact, I was saying, I was doing a video and I said Alhamdulillah, and some guy says, oh, well, I've never thought in my wildest dreams that somebody would say Alhamdulillah in the middle of Napoli. And it was like, SubhanAllah, Um, but yeah, no, a lot of them, I mean, they don't even know about Islam. They don't, even the guys, the Bangladeshis were like, are you Muslim? I'm like, yeah, Alhamdulillah. And they all smiled. They're like, oh, okay. You don't look like us. What are you doing here? Where are you from? So yeah, I think Italy would be a hard nut to crack, but I think that, yeah, yeah, I
Well,
think there would be a lot of, go ahead.
yeah, the dissident right, they've mostly been deplatformed. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so the problem is not, because they don't have, their attitudes on Islam range from neutral to positive.
Mm.
But they're if you talk to them publicly, there's a good chance that it'll affect your career negatively.
Ah, I
So
gotcha.
you can't ally with these people.
Right.
However, uh, you know, excuse me. One of the things we have thought about recently is that the more, ironically enough, because these two groups actually hate each other, the anti-Islam
Yeah.
right and the dissident right, and we want them in schism as much as humanly possible. Like divide and conquer. So,
Right.
the ironic thing is the more that Europe hates on Islam in and of
Hmm.
itself,
Hmm.
the more you're pushing away all these people, all these white people who are going to convert to Islam.
Right.
And that's going to make collectivization impossible,
Right.
right? So
Right.
what you're
Right.
doing is, and the dissident right, they're more worried about racial demographics as opposed to
Yeah.
religious demographics. So
Right.
if this anti-Islam sentiment didn't exist,
Mm.
and there was a European Muslim identity,
Mm.
naturally what would happen is that these people, these Europeans, would convert as a group. They would form a wolf pack,
Mm.
and then it would naturally grow from the ground up. And not only that, you would see this synthesis of their cultural aesthetics within Islam.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And the ironic thing is, like to the anti-Islam right, they're saying Islam is bad. People convert to Islam are traitors. But what that's doing
Traitors. Yeah.
is you're leaving these converts no choice but to assimilate into an existing Muslim community.
Right. Right.
Which is not with So obviously, if the Muslim community in Europe grows naturally from the ground up, this will have a positive effect on the European total fertility rate.
Right. Absolutely.
But no one's really pointed out that paradox before. I've tried to
Right.
explain this to people, and when I explain this to people on the right, they're just like, I don't want to listen. But for the more you think about it, they're really shooting themselves in the foot here if they're worried about demographics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
So yeah, unfortunately, may Allah, help our brothers and sisters who are in Europe, because obviously they're going to face a lot of ridicule and whatnot. I just think that we need to think long term. We need to think long game about
Absolutely.
this.
Yes, absolutely. I'm totally pro long game. And I think that's one of the things we do ourselves a disservice by thinking 2 months in advance, 3 months in advance, 9 months in advance. I mean, I was saying this on my channel the other day. We have to think in the long term. This is, we have to, yeah, we can't just think about, yeah. It's such a shame. And I know people are worried because, the economy is bad and things are really rough, right? For sure, for a lot of, especially economically, which then trickles down into the social sphere. I understand that 100%, but we have to think about the long term. I think that's really important. And I think a lot of people aren't doing that. So we can use that to our advantage as well.
Yeah, inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Well, I'm glad we seem to be in a lot of agreement here, Sister Ali. I
Yeah,
mean, I know
absolutely.
my people think that my ideas are pretty fringe, but there's nothing fringe about what I'm saying. I mean, like it's
No, not at all.
very easily, and then you can use this, if they see that born Muslims in Europe uh, are advocating for this, like we're
Hmm.
encouraging converts to collectivize.
Yep.
You can use it as a bargaining chip, for
Mm,
to say, look, we have positive things to offer Europe. Use it as a
mm.
bargaining chip for the safety of all Muslims living in Europe.
Truly. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So that's basically our what we're advocating for, even though
Yeah.
we're not a think tank, but this is just what we if we had like political power, this is what we would advocate for.
Yeah, inshallah. Inshallah. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there let's see here, we talked about Islamophobia, we talked about masajid. Let's see, probably some other topics. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss that we haven't discussed yet, Ali? Or
No, I don't think so. I think that we need more, European looking Muslims, white Muslims in leadership positions. I think that's you've obviously you see a dearth here. So I think that we could, hopefully we can fill that void, inshallah, with people who are I use Imam Tom as an example. He has his khutbas in English. Sheikh Hassan Spiker. These are people that look like us, and inshallah we can start putting people that look like us in these positions of power that are leading communities, that are leading movements. So I think that inshallah we can pray for that as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
inshallah. And like, just to add to that, I mean,
Hmm.
I do think that leadership positions are good. The thing is,
Hmm.
though, I do understand that born Muslim communities, they're coming from a totally different life experience, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
as visible Muslims, and I don't like that. I understand, I think that converts should be leading their own groups,
Yes.
not have
Oh, totally.
interference
Totally.
from existing Muslim communities.
Right.
But at the same time, like, they're coming from experience that we don't understand. So
Absolutely.
I think it's not to create division, but I do think delegation of different tasks
Hmm.
to different communities is important as well, because
Hmm.
they have their own problems that they have to deal with. They have
Absolutely.
to deal with being visibly Muslim.
Yep.
They have to worry about things that are going on back home, and
Yep.
I don't think that the converts are really cut out for leadership positions in that in those
No, of
spheres.
course. No, but for
Um,
leading others that look like them. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. No, I definitely, yeah, we are using our privilege, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to lead people that also look like us, that have that. So we can lead the entire sort of group. Look at this, and we can speak to these, the left, or, or the right, depending on, which rally we're at. So we can show people like we have this privilege that we can talk to and speak to. So let's use it, right? Let's use it to our advantage, right? So we don't have to take on, I was complaining on one of my live streams the other day. Is like, we have to stop being meek and mild. Oh, I'm Muslim. Oh, no, that's a colonial mindset. We're Muslims. We are victors, not victims. Like, let's be proud of who you are, and I understand there's that anti-Muslim sentiment, but who cares? That's about them, not us. Like, let's use our privilege that we've been given. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has picked us to be Muslims. Let's use that to our advantage. Embolden yourself. Be proud of being Muslim. Yes, I'm Muslim. If you have a problem with that, let's talk about it, which of course they won't, because well, I don't know, but that's fine. Then stop talking.
Yeah.
I don't have anything, so I just feel like we have powers and privileges that others don't have. Let's use it to our advantage to boost and raise up the entire ummah, to the best of our ability, inshallah. So
Yeah. The whole leftist argument about privilege, like they use this as like a way to knock, like make it think about privilege, that they want no one to have privilege.
yes,
Like
oh my
they want to
gosh.
knock everybody down and
Yeah,
everyone be at the same level.
that's right.
And I think you
It's ridiculous.
touched touched on this, is that, like that's not what Islam teaches.
That's
Like
right. Yeah.
these are advantages, these are
That's right.
bounties that Allah has
That's
given
right.
us.
I
Uh
love that. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like there are many people in the Quraysh who used to be the enemies of Islam. When they converted, they didn't give up their previous power positions.
Why would you?
Right, exactly. So like these can be used to our advantage. And the same goes for born Muslims. They're given
Yeah,
bounties such as a Muslim family and a Muslim
that's right.
community and things like that. Though we're not suggesting that they get rid of those things or tear
Of
down
course
their
not.
family structure to to take us in.
Right.
So I completely agree with you. I think that we've
Absolutely.
been given a lot of bounties as white people,
Yep.
and we can use that for the betterment of the whole Muslim ummah, and our
Absolutely.
people as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I was at my second
excuse me.
master's is a master's of social work at the Columbia University, in Columbia University. And so all they do is talk about white privilege, white privilege, white privilege, right? I mean, it's so insane.
Yeah.
Um, so, as you dive deeper into the Quran, you realize, we are given these privileges and, like you said, bounties from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's use them to our advantage, not only for our own community that looks like us, but the entire ummah. I think it's such an advantage that we have. Let's talk to people who look like us within our family, within our social sphere, within our broader community. We have that. Let's use it. Why are we not using that? Why are we, oh, I don't want to tell people I'm Muslim. Why not? Why be shy about it? You are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw something in you, right?
Excuse
Use it. Use it
me.
to your advantage. Be bold, be brave, like do this. Like, don't be meek and mild. Be great,
Right.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
I mean, it's easier said than done at times. I mean, like it's
At
going to take a
times, of
lot
course.
of resolve, and
Hmm.
even being, even like going back to my hometown, and this is where I'm
Mm,
from, and like everyone's, it's a town that's 95% white.
yeah,
Like there's still going to be some reluctance there, and spreading
of
Islam
course.
to your people. I think if you just have to. I think one of the biggest barriers is, like I said, spinning it in a way where converting to Islam is, you're going to have people ready to take you in, and the infrastructure there to
Yeah.
support that.
Yeah. That's the
Um,
thing. Very,
and we
very
can't
true.
be afraid of collectivizing either. Like
No, of course not.
I know, like the knee jerk reaction is, it a black hole is going to open up if white people collectivize for any reason whatsoever. but that's again, this is needed. We're doing a disservice by
Absolutely.
not collectivizing.
Yeah,
I agree with
absolutely, absolutely. And that's the
you.
thing, right? We could have many more white Muslims if we collectivize, right? And we talk to people, and and sharing. I was talking to a friend just the other day, and they said, "Oh, blah blah blah," and I said, "You know that the same stories are in the Quran that were in the Bible and in the Torah, right?" And they're like, "They are?" I'm like, I mean, people don't even know, right? And it's like because this Judeo-Christian, mindset is like, well, Islam is different. Islam. I mean, there was two viral tweets just last week about why are so many white people converting? They have no Arab ancestry. I'm like, you don't have to be Arab to be Muslim.
Right.
And I missed the opportunity. I didn't tweet because I was in Italy on vacation, so I didn't really tweet about it. But I thought about, I'm like, it's so irritating that people just have such little understanding about Islam, and I just feel like, it's yeah, we have to speak up about this, right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I did miss the opportunity to tweet about it now. It seems a bit strange, but yeah, you don't have to be Arab, you don't have to be South Asian, you don't have to be Indonesian to be Muslim. And I think that we can talk to people when they say something, or what I do with my Islamophobic family members. Is I'll reference the Quran, which they don't know. Oh, that sounds nice. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, wow, that's interesting. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's actually part of the Quran. They're like, oh, wait, what? It's like, yeah, so you sort of
Self
weave
Dawah.
it in, right? I think and that means that we also have to be embedded into our religion. We have to know what the Quran says. We have to know the hadiths, what is authentic hadith and what is not authentic. So that means we have to gain knowledge ourselves and practice what we preach, which goes back, full circle to the hypocrisy. Do you say one thing and then do another? There's a beautiful verse in the Quran that says that. So I don't remember exactly what the ayah it is,
Surta
but it says,
Saf. Surta Saf.
okay, yeah, alhamdulillah. So
Six. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that. It's like, do you say one thing and do another? And I think that that's so true. Like, this is hypocrisy. So let's learn the Quran. Let's learn how to pray. Let's learn and then embody that,
Mhm.
become Muslim, right? And so that we can show other people, because I think the biggest influence is that our actions, our behaviors, the way we speak to one another, the way we speak to those around us, that has a bigger influence. The way you speak to a server at the restaurant, these have bigger influences than maybe, somebody else who would never turn on in a mom Tom video. It's like, why would I want to watch that? But I know that my cousin is Muslim. Oh, that's interesting. So she says, well, what does that mean exactly? Yeah, I noticed her behavior has changed. I noticed she stopped swearing. I noticed she wears more modest clothing. I noticed that this, and this,
Mhm.
embody being a Muslim as opposed to just talking about being Muslim.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's
Mm.
may Allah assist you in all of your
I
endeavors
mean,
with your family and community circles. Yeah,
Bismillah.
this was a great conversation, Ali.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I'm glad we were able to talk about these things. Please like and subscribe to Ali's channel as well.
Inshallah.
Do you have any other podcasts coming up, or lives, or interviews?
I try and do a live, we call it a life stream instead of a live stream because Islam gives us life, right? If it we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we call it a live stream. I do it 5 nights a week.
Okay.
I haven't settled for sure on a schedule. It's usually, Monday to Friday, maybe. I don't know. I just pop on. So turn on your notifications, inshallah. Ring that notification bell or whatever they say. Or turn on that notification bell. I don't remember what they say. What the parlance is, but yeah. And so I do it 5 nights a week on my Alie Forza. And then, of course, I'm on Twitter and on Instagram. And I guess I'm on TikTok now, but I haven't posted anything.
Hmm.
Everybody's like, go on TikTok, go on TikTok. And I'm like, I don't know if I should. And then I went on and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Short form content is a bit strange. It's, I think it ruins your ability to focus and concentrate. So, but yeah, I do live streams 5 nights a week, inshallah. And then just standalone content as well. So inshallah, we'll have you on the channel as well.
Yes, I would love to be on there.
That'd be wonderful.
We're having an uptick in subscribership.
Oh, wonderful.
I just
Alhamdulillah.
published my article as a video book, challenging the Medina model.
Yes.
We
Alhamdulillah.
produce, alhamdulillah, my wife is really good at audio editing. She
Oh,
helped
wow.
produce our first nasheed, which is our theme song for Islam for
Oh, wow.
Europeans. It's a Gregorian chant nasheed
Oh, wow.
called "Bring Me Home."
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
and I'm writing a book, inshallah, how
Oh,
Islam can
inshallah.
save the West.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Inshallah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is great. I think we'll end it here, Ali.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for coming on the
Yeah,
show.
Jazakallah khair for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll stop the recording in a few seconds so you can just hang on for a bit.
For sure.
But yeah, please like and subscribe to Islam for Europeans, and please like and subscribe to Ali's channel. This is Robert from Islam for Europeans. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Recording.